Very good morning to you this Thursday. This is the news at 10 on NTA News 24, reaching you live from Abuja. I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
And I'm Abdul Malik Adio. It's good to have you join us on the news. Now, the headlines. Federal Executive Council approves additional funds for the execution of critical infrastructure across the country.
Federal government mandates Ministry of Science and Technology to embark on production of methanol.
Senate screens nominees for the Nigerian Law Reforms Commission.
Towards tackling COVID-19, Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila inaugurates 18-member ad hoc committee.
Thanks for staying tuned. Now, at midnight of 20th May 2020, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control confirmed 284 new cases of COVID-19 in the country. The breakdown of the figures show that Lagos has 199 new cases, Rivers 26, Oyo 19, the Federal Capital Territory and Borno 8 each, and others are Plateau 7, Jigawa 6, Kano 5, Abia 2 and 1 each in Ekiti, Delta, Kwara and Taraba State. With this development, Nigeria now has a total of 6,677 cases of COVID-19, out of which 1,840 were discharged, while 200 patients died of the virus.
Now, the Federal Executive Council has approved 2.9 billion naira for the provision of water and fire service equipment in the National Oil and Gas Park to be sited in Odukbane, Cross River State. The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Temipere Silva, announced this while briefing newsmen after the meeting of the Executive Council.
State House correspondent Damusambo reports that similar approval were also secured for the provision of other critical infrastructure in the transportation, works and housing, finance, education, as well as aviation sectors.
It was the 10th meeting of the highest policy decision-making body of the Nigerian government in the year 2020, the second to be held virtually in keeping with the social distancing protocol occasioned by the coronavirus pandemic. The meeting was presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. He was joined by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and some ministers, while others took part in the meeting online from their offices. At the meeting, which lasted more than 2 hours, 6 memoranda on the provision of critical infrastructure were considered and approved. The provision of water and fire service equipment for the National Oil and Gas Park, Odukbane, Cross River State, was one of them.
The Oil and Gas Park scheme is to provide an environment, a corridor for siting industries that will produce components locally for the oil and gas industry. Of course, these parks will create jobs and also increase local capacity and participation in the oil and gas industry.
The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, also announced the Council's approval of 724.7 million naira for the construction, equipping and furnishing of the Faculty of Health Sciences in the Plateau State University, Okos.
Honorable Minister of Finance presented the memo for the award of 1,200 units of color printers and desktop computers for human resources management system and accounting management systems across zones and area commands of the Nigeria Custom Services. The sum of the contract was 623,700,000 naira.
That memo, the minister said, was duly approved by the council, so also the 116 million naira augmentation of an existing contract for the construction of 90-meter-long Osiakwa Bridge with a 2-kilometer approach in Anambra State, now to be completed at 1.014 billion naira.
It's important to know that this contract has already attained 87.9% completion, but it was stalled in 2012 after the 90-meter bridge had been constructed. There was huge flooding, which made it impossible for the 2-kilometer approach road to be constructed. The lapse in time and period, like I say, when the project was actually awarded in 2009 till date, has made the contract, rates to be reviewed.
Approval has also been granted for 1.1 billion naira revised estimated cost for the construction as well as upgrading of the electrical system of Boeing 737 full flight simulator building at the Nigerian College of Aviation Technology, Zaria. In the meantime, the Ministry of Transportation has been given the go-ahead for the implementation of its Seafarers Development Program. $454,050 will be expended on the Sea Time Training Initiative by NIMASA, aimed at enhancing the capacity of the Nigerian youth to take over the lucrative jobs available in the maritime sector, hitherto dominated by foreigners. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
And the COVID-19 albatross on economies of the world has not spared Nigeria. However, handlers of the nation's economy are also adopting flexible antidotes to the current economic malaise by implementing various stimulus packages offered to businesses and state governments through the Central Bank of Nigeria and other development partners.
Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 made this known in a recent national briefing. Benny Adams takes us through some of these interventions.
With efforts at flattening the curve in the containment moves against COVID-19, the federal government has adopted a 3-point strategy. The status report offered by the Presidential Task Force daily gives an insight into the national response to the COVID-19 pandemic. While maintaining the delicate balance between health and wealth during this period, Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Boss Mustafa said the federal government is focusing on ensuring that socio-economic difficulties experienced during the lockdown were smoothened out without compromising safety. This is evident with a reduction of interest rates from 9% to 5% for all CBN intervention facilities, restructuring of loans to longer tenors for all companies whose businesses could be adversely impacted by COVID-19, among other interventions.
A 50 billion naira facility to households and businesses adversely impacted by COVID-19, 100 billion facility to pharmaceutical and health sector companies to retool their businesses, a 1 trillion naira facility to agriculture and manufacturing companies to expand and set up new factories, and 6, suspension of repayment of all state government loans for 1 year.
In a national broadcast on the 27th of April, President Muhammadu Buhari had announced a phased and gradual easing of the lockdown in Lagos and Ogun states, as well as the Federal Capital Territory, along with additional nationwide measures aimed at ensuring that the economy continued to breathe within the limiting airflows posed by a COVID-19 pandemic.
The reality is that, in spite of the modest progress made, Nigeria is not yet ready for full opening of the economy, and tough decisions have to be taken for the good of the greater majority.
The PTF on COVID-19 is carefully monitoring the economic push and pull of the nation, positing that the resumption of some manufacturing, construction and allied sectors of the economy put in adequate infection mitigation measures to control spread, while the newly introduced initiatives will give the economy a new lease of life. In Abuja, Benny Adams, NTA News.
And in the meantime, in pursuance of its economic diversification policy and in line with national response strategy in the sector, the federal government has mandated the Ministry of Science and Technology to embark on production of methanol, a high-octane, clean-burning fuel that is potentially an important substitute for petrol.
Kirian Umayo examines the implication of methanol development for a nation endowed with over 3.4 trillion cubic meters of natural gas. The report.
In the light of the troubled oil industry and economic diversification policy of government, it has become imperative to drift to alternative to fossil fuel. The choice of methanol, which can be produced on an industrial scale using natural gas, is understandable, as Nigeria has and can leverage on the 202 trillion cubic feet of natural gas resource to produce methanol. Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Bonner Onu, says that the physical and chemical characteristics of methanol can result in several inherent advantages as an automotive fuel with lower emissions and higher performance, and as an energy carrier that can also serve as fuel for factories and electricity generation.
This is one way you can convert the methane, which is 85% of the natural gas, to methanol. And we have been flaring our gas for so long. And every year we say, okay, we are going to stop gas flaring. But, we have not done so.
The National Research Institute for Chemical Technology, ZARIA, which is involved in renewable energy research with sophisticated chemical testing laboratory, would provide the platform for the takeoff of the production process. Human capacity in this area is not in question, says its Director General, Professor Jeffrey Baminas.
These are experts that can be lecturers in our universities. They can also be in any industry in Nigeria. So NARIT, actually, just like I said, when it comes to fixing the problems in the chemical industry, NARIT is well situated.
As opposed to what we did in crude petroleum, exporting it without value addition. Methanol is a way of adding value to natural gas.
When and if Nigeria makes progress in the establishment of methanol plants across the nation, the oil depletion expected in 49 years would no longer be a threat. Kirian Umayo, NTA News.
And towards confronting the coronavirus pandemic on all fronts, the Speaker, Femi Gbajabiamila, has inaugurated an 18-member ad hoc committee on COVID-19. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports.
The challenge of overcoming the pandemic makes it a duty for the National Assembly to engage with the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. House Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila says the role of the committee is to add value by serving as a link between the task force and legislature on the one hand and the Nigerian people on the other.
Citizens, doctors, nurses, and all the health workers on the front lines of the fight against COVID-19 in Nigeria receive the full protection that they deserve and the benefits they have so honorably earned.
Chairman of the House Ad Hoc Committee on COVID-19, Representative Haruna Mishelia, says the involvement of all agencies is necessary to sustain all gains spanning post-COVID-19.
We will interact and make sure we do those things that will add value to what is happening.
Terms of reference of the committee include monitoring activities of the PTF and all agencies related to management of the pandemic in the country. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
Now, the saying necessity is the mother of invention played out at the University of Science and Technology, Wudil in Kano State.
Now, scientists and researchers at the institution brainstormed and developed a solar-powered thermometer and automated hand sanitizers as part of their contribution to stem the rising cases of community transmission of COVID-19 in the country. Muhammad Rabiu Ali reports.
The novel coronavirus pandemic has challenged Nigerians to look inward for its cure and means to curtail the spread of the disease across the country. Kano University of Science and Technology Wudil has joined the League of Research Institutions to develop and popularize their research findings as it invented thermometer using solar power for body temperature and automated hand sanitizer. The instrument is adaptable in rural communities where electricity is in short supply.
So we make our own to be dual. Some of these machines we make some of them 100% solar, so that can be used even in remote areas. Then some we make them dual, that you can use solar and you can use also electricity. Another thing we add also, a question may arise that if you use solar, maybe late in the evening where there is no radiation, what will happen? Then we have inbuilt storage battery. That is when, as we are using it now, still is charging the battery. So when it is late in the evening, still you can use the machine.
Vice Chancellor of the university, Professor Shehu Alhaji Musa, is the driving force behind the major breakthrough.
We therefore feel that government should harness on this opportunity so that both people within the rural and urban areas can benefit from this technology that has so far been developed by the university. The university has so far produced 20 pieces each of solar-powered infrared measuring device for temperature, and also 20 pieces of automatic hand sanitizers. And this is to be donated to Kano State government for us to support the COVID-19 program.
Facilities like this developed by the Nigerian universities to fight the novel coronavirus pandemic, experts say, will not only save the country billions of naira, but enhance capability of researchers to face the contemporary challenges. Muhammad Rabiu Ali, NTA News.
Now, this is the news on NTA International, reaching you live from Abuja on Channel News 24. Up ahead.
292 Nigerians repatriated from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Please stay with us.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
Thanks for staying tuned. Now, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jeffrey Onyema, has confirmed that 292 Nigerians have been successfully repatriated from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. In a Twitter message, the minister said the stranded Nigerians have been brought back home in line with the federal government's commitment to evacuate stranded Nigerians whose visa might have expired amid a coronavirus pandemic to put on hold air travels.
You know, the story is now Muslims all over the world will be celebrating Eid al-Fitr in an unusual manner, just the way the Ramadan fast is being observed under the restriction order due to the coronavirus pandemic.
Musa Babaliu reports that there will be no Eid congregational prayers in Abuja, just as other states are taking steps towards ensuring that the Salah feast is celebrated on a low-key.
The global outbreak of COVID-19 is accompanied by changes which have distorted the religious and social life of people the world over. Restriction of movement and social distancing protocol has affected the way the fast and other religious obligations are observed. In the next few days, the fasting being observed by Muslims in the month of Ramadan will come to an end. This will be followed by Eid al-Fitr celebration. This year's Eid al-Fitr celebration, however, will be observed in an unusual manner. Due to the exigencies of the time, there will be no congregational prayer in both open spaces and even here at the National Mosque.
In some countries, it's not only Nigeria, most of the countries of the world will not do Eid al-Fitr in the mosque. Most of them, not only in Nigeria. So we have to exercise patience and accept the reality.
It is from an informed situation, from knowledge. And as a Muslim, I don't think there is any problem with that.
This does not put away the major obligation of the celebration, which is giving alms to the needy, known as Zakat al-Fitr.
When it is time for Zakat al-Fitr, all Muslims are expected to pay out this zakat on their behalf and that of their families.
In spite of this, families are making efforts to ensure that children do not miss out of the fun usually associated with the feast.
People, they buy, but not as last year because of this pandemic.
If it's last year, you see so many customers surrounding us here. But right now, there are the little ones you've sold now, they've not collected it because there's no money.
The Sultan of Sokoto, Muhammad Saad Abubakar, has urged Muslims to look for new month this Friday, 22nd of May 2020, equivalent to 29th of month of Ramadan. If cited, it will bring to an end the month of Ramadan and the beginning of the month of Shawwal. In Abuja, Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
All right, thank you, Musa Babaliu, for that report. And joining us in the studio now to give further insight into the Zakat al-Fitr is an Islamic scholar, Imam Mustafa Agbarere. Many thanks for joining us on the studio today.
Thanks for having me. Indeed. What is the wisdom behind the institution of Zakat al-Fitr?
Well, Zakat al-Fitr is just like a palliative measure, something that is prevalent in the country now, in order to ease the suffering of the needy and the indigent. That is why the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may the peace of Allah be upon him, said that Zakat al-Fitr is made obligatory on you, so that you use it to cleanse and purify all your inadequacies in your fasting. And it is meant to be given to the indigent in the community. That is exactly the intendment of the religion and the philosophy of Zakat al-Fitr. It's a charity.
All right, so we were told that this kind of zakat is given out of the common food stuff, in the community. But in view of the current situation of COVID-19, can someone convert it to cash?
Yes, the exigency of this COVID-19 has made lawful all those things that were otherwise seen to be unusual. Let me tell you, in Islam, the issue of pragmatism is given a room. Islam allows for events that will necessitate the changes in the moral and in the doings of things. That is why we have it in the Quran 2, verse 173, where Allah says that وَمَنِ الْتُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. He that is necessitated to do something without craving, not cravingly, and not with the intent of being transgressive, that such a person has no sin. Now, this time around, ordinarily, Zakat al-Fitr being the zakat that is given in staple foods of the community where you live, if you cannot be able to take it out to the people, to get it to those people, to the people that are
entitled to collect those zakats, it is permitted to be converted into cash. That is a situation of darur, necessity, and necessity knows no law. We are just in a situation like force majeure. We know force majeure, act of war, act of God, rains, and things like that. When those occurrences happen, then the normalcy will abate. Then the abnormality or something to go around that thing, to beat around the corner, will now be the prevalent situation. So, in other words, what I'm saying is that Zakat al-Fitr at this point in time can be converted into cash. All you do is that, because Zakat al-Fitr is just 4 handfuls of the staple foods, such as rice, millets, or other grains in the community. So those 4 handful of what do you call it? Those foods will now be estimated in terms of their cost and the market value of those things. When you get the market value of a 4 handful of rice, and you do it for one person, and you say, okay, this is how much it is, like it's 5 naira or 10 naira or 20 naira. You make that money and you pay it to the indigents in the community. It is acceptable.
Now, how long does Zakat al-Fitr last?
Zakat al-Fitr, yes, as it is a zakat that is done celebration of Salah. Before you go to Jummah, to the Eid praying ground, and in this time around, before you do the prayer in your houses, that is when you take out Zakat al-Fitr. If you take it out after that, it becomes your ordinary sadaqah, ordinary alms that you give to the people. But when you do it before you go to the mosque and perform your prayer, especially we have it in some narrations. Some scholars say that 2 days before the Eid day, you take out Zakat al-Fitr. A day until the morning of the Eid, you can as well be taking it out. But immediately they do Eid. That is why they say Eid should be done around like 10 or 11. Immediately Eid is over, Zakat al-Fitr has stopped, and you will not be able to get the reward of Zakat al-Fitr, but you will get the reward of the normal charity that you do. Zakat al-Fitr, meanwhile, let me just say the reason behind it. It says that purification of what you have committed when you are doing the fasting. Some inadequacies in your fasting are there. That is what will make your fasting to be complete and to be accepted by God. And the Prophet said again, Tu'umatan lil masakin. It is like a good food for the indigent in the community, so that they too, they will have the radiance, the enjoyment of the Eid, and they will also be part of the society. Because some people have been fasting before the fasting. They will continue to fast even after the fasting. Some people will see the situation of fasting as, we thank God, fasting has even come, because we have been doing the fasting before. Now that the fasting is about to end, we don't even have what we are going to use to eat in our homes. And the Islam says that on the day of Eid, you must not fast. So those people, Islam wants them to also feel the society and to also eat in their houses and to marry and do all the merry makings. That is how Zakat al-Fitr is done.
Now, we've acknowledged the fact that, we'll be celebrating this Eid al-Fitr in a very unusual manner. Now, how should Muslims celebrate, this period for us, talking about the end of Ramadan fast?
Primarily, Islam obligates or obliges all Muslims to follow Allah, to follow the prophets and the rules of the constituted authorities. The constituted authority in Nigeria, that is government, said that yes, you don't go to mosque, you do social distancing, you cover your mouth and your faces, you don't shake, because of the prevalent health challenges that we are having globally. So Islam is not an exception. As it is, Eid is also not an exception. You don't go to Eid. It's very simple. Eid is not like a Friday prayer. In fact, Friday prayers were suspended for some time. We're doing the normal prayers. So if Friday prayer that was obligatory, just like the Zuhr, Asri, or Maghrib, Isha prayer was suspended, Eid prayer was just a nafila, supererogatory act that we just do to thank Allah that we complete Ramadan. So what we're going to do this time around is everybody will stay at their various homes observe this prayer with the family. You are the imam, you have been the imam during the Ramadan time. We didn't even do itikaf. Do it with your family. You are or when you get somebody that is more learned among your children in Islamic recitation and rules, let him lead. Only 2 rakats. Some say that you can do 4 rakats when you miss it, because there was a tradition of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when some people miss Eid prayer. They went to the Prophet and said, "We miss." Prophet said, "Go to your houses and go and observe 2 rakats, or you do 4 rakats. The only thing you will not do, that is the rider. An exception is that you will not do khutbah, because after the Eid, there is something we call khutbah, that when the imam will sermonize, will address the community. You don't do that. As long as you do these 2 in your houses and you do prayers, Allah will accept it. He sees us from the mind, not from the outward. Certainly all deeds will be judged as per the intention of the doers of those deeds. We just pray that this pandemic will abate very soon, will stop very soon. Allah will descend His peace on the world all over, so that all the worshiping activities will resume as normal as we were doing them before.
All right, thank you very much. We've been speaking with an Islamic scholar, Imam Mustafa Agbarere. Thank you so much for being with us on the news at 10 on NTA News 24.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Welcome to Health Options with me, Rabi Abdullah. I guess you're familiar with zinc as an element as students of chemistry, but do you know the major role it plays in immune function and anti-inflammation as a micronutrient? Being part of our nature scanner of the program will avail you the opportunity to know a lot about zinc, its functions, symptoms, causes of deficiency, and natural food sources that are rich in zinc. Lack of adequate protective gear and inadequate testing kits is said to be putting medical workers at risk of COVID-19 infection. Negligence on the part of these frontliners has also not been ruled out. Across the world, healthcare workers have been infected while working to save the lives of others. Health Options shall take a look at the basic standard safety precautionary measures expected to be taken by health workers. My guest is the Registrar, Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, Dr. Tajuddin Sanusi, as we beam our searchlights on doctors. Thanks for joining us on the program. This is Health Options, and our topic is safety of health workers on COVID-19 frontline, with doctors as our focus. And with me in the studio for the discussion is the Registrar, Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, Dr. Tajuddin Sanusi. Thanks for joining us on Health Options, Dr. Tajuddin Sanusi.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
All right. You have your men out there battling COVID-19, saving lives and getting infected in the process. Let's start with what the Hippocratic oath says. The aspect of safety, I'm sure, is equally captured. Can you let us into that?
Thank you very much. The Hippocratic oath have undergone a lot of amendments. The latest of which was amended in Chicago by World Medical Assembly in October 2017. The safety of the doctor was actually mentioned. mentioned the sense that they should not forget to take care of themselves. Doing that, meaning that if they are in good health, they will be in the proper perspective to offer the same services to people needing them who are our patients. And that is primarily what we are supposed to do. So that is just it. Do not call it physician's pledge, not Hippocratic oath, because before then it was changed to physician's oath. But because of that change in nomenclature by the World Medical Assembly in October 2017, it's now rechristened as physician's pledge. That is why anytime we are inducting new doctors into the profession in this country, we make them to recite the physician's pledge.
Okay. In view of the mandate of your council, that's ensuring quality assurance in the medical profession, and we're discussing safety here, it's been said that we don't have enough PPEs for the health workers. But on the other hand, and I know that efforts are being made to make sure that Nigeria, addresses that. It's not a one country problem. We could see that even the UK at some point, the same thing in the US, they ran out of test kits, even PPEs. So what's your take on the situation, while efforts are being made to close that gap? We've actually also been told that doctors on their part too tend to become negligent. And I can even share a personal experience with you. I took a nephew of mine to a hospital, a private hospital, and the doctor I met there didn't have a face mask on. He was not wearing gloves, and I didn't feel comfortable him attending to us. And when I asked him, he said he didn't have any with him. And I said, it doesn't sound right that he, as a medical expert that will attend to patients, not even knowing our own health status, will sit down there without the right kit. What's your reaction to this?
Well, thank you very much. Even before the issue of pandemics came up, we've always been advising the doctors to protect themselves. In fact, in our Code of Medical Ethics, in Chapter 25, it's already coded where the issue of infectious diseases were mentioned. Ordinarily, doctors ought to actually protect themselves, because let's say, for instance, somebody has a cough disease. He comes in. Cough disease is a transmissible disease. It's a communicable disease. For you as a doctor, you need to protect yourself, meaning that you will need to have what we call some of this face mask, which is necessary to protect you. But with the situation where we have found ourselves globally now, it becomes very important. Of course, there is a shortage globally, but we expect that the employers of labor or people in administrative positions should be able to provide this. But at the same time, the doctors themselves should try as much as possible to protect themselves. Because if you don't protect yourself and you are infected, you can't work. So even if your employer is not even providing this, why not make efforts to even protect yourself? Take, for instance, even the clinical laboratory, the clinical coats will not only put up ordinarily. It's a personal protective equipment, because at times when you take samples and whatever.
Okay, that's the garment.
The garment. Okay. It's part of the PPE. Even the gloves you put on to take samples from the patient is part of the PPE. There are times when you need to examine the patient, you put it on the couch, you need to actually do some kind of elicit some symptoms. You need to protect yourself. So that has been part of the profession on its own. You don't need to be reminded. But with the pandemics and the rate at which this coronavirus is spreading, it becomes very important for us to be extra careful and make sure you protect yourself. And at the same time, be wary of the fact that if you are in a private hospital, you know you are not supposed to take in a COVID-19 patient. Of course, when you suspect that, You just put a call through to the centers, and immediately they will dispatch their vehicles or ambulances to come and evacuate such a patient for proper treatment.
Okay, so like you rightly said, it's a global. The shortage is a global problem.
Yes.
Like I said earlier, the National Health Services, of the UK, even the US, they all have their issues. Even China, at some point, had to mop up those PPEs from other countries. When the virus was raging, at its peak then. So, but what you are saying now is that the doctor should consider the safety, personal safety, even if his employers, employers are expected to provide PPEs anyway. But in the absence of that, the doctor should take his own personal safety in his hands.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
I agree. Because that one, let me tell you, see, when you look at the employment in this country, the greatest employer of health services is the federal government. How many of us can the federal government actually provide that thing for? But the federal government is trying on its own. But that does not mean that we should not go an extra length, an extra mile to actually protect ourselves. Because let me tell you, in Nigeria, it's only the bad news that spread easily. Good ones will not. If somebody contracts something in that the news will go around. Don't go to that place or you can easily be infected. So that is why some of us believe that apart from the fact that the employer is supposed to provide this thing, what stops you as a registered practitioner practicing in going an extra mile and protect yourself as well?
Well, talking about the bad news, that brings to mind the incident that happened in Kwara, talking about their index case where a professor, at the teaching hospital, shielded his friend, and that resulted into an unpleasant development. How do you reconcile that? Compromising professionalism at the detriment of the safety of other people for the sake of maybe family or friendship.
Number one, Trite law says you hear both parties. We've only read of this on the pages of the newspaper. But being the custodian of the conduct of the doctors in the profession in this country, we have taken steps to address that. We have already written to the teaching hospital to actually swear out an affidavit, give the complaint, so that it will be assumed, or you assume that the complaint will be properly laid before Medical and Data Council of Nigeria. Because if it is not in form of an affidavit sworn to before a commissioner for health or notary public, it is assumed that there is no complaint with the Medical and Data Council of Nigeria, and we should allow the investigating panel to actually go about its own job by investigating this matter. Now, it is just an allegation. Until the investigation is concluded, it is then we will now know if the doctor has a case to answer or he does not have a case to answer.
So it's still at the level of investigation now. Nothing has
level of complaint. So we have not even received the official complaint from the teaching hospital. Even though the way you came across it, it was the way we came across it. We immediately wrote to the teaching hospital so that the complaint can be properly laid before Medical and Data Council of Nigeria, because we have that responsibility to protect the public, and that's one of the ways we can protect the public.
So while the public is in a great appreciation of what your men out there are doing, the men and women, talking about the medical doctors battling COVID-19 and saving the lives of those who have been infected, what have you got to say in terms of upholding professionalism and at the same time considering safety?
You see, first and foremost, by virtue of our mandate in council, which starts with determining the skills and the knowledge to be acquired by people wishing to become medical or dental practitioners, to maintaining the registers from time to time. 3, put together the code of conduct to be observed by the registered practitioners. Then regulation of homeopathy and other forms of alternative medicine. 5, regulation and control of clinical laboratory practice. In this aspect of COVID-19 now, of course, the pathologists are very active, especially the medical microbiologists and the medical virologists. They are very, very active in this respect because they are the ones that are in that subspecialty.
So what would be your word of advice to those who are really on the front line?
Well, my advice is for them to take care of themselves first, to protect themselves. Once that is done, like the government has said, no private clinic should take in any COVID-19 patient. They should go by that. If you suspect, even you don't need to be suspecting a COVID-19, protect yourself first. By the time you come in contact with that patient and you clock the patient, you take note of the symptoms and whatever, and you are suspecting that this person may likely be having COVID-19, then quickly you refer the patient. But the important thing is you must protect yourself with the PPE. It's very, very important. But I'm aware there is shortage. Globally, there is shortage of ventilators. But some of these local people here, they've been able to invest and they are working like the other ones. So that's why I say in one way it's a blessing. In the same way, the so-called protective equipment also, the people who can actually make something like that so that so that can serve the purpose for which it is meant to serve, can also come up with their ingenuity. Are you getting me? And do something which could be tested, and once it's tested and it can serve the purpose, of course, you will now be less dependent on some of these things being imported, which often lead to capital flight. That would have saved a lot of hard currency.
So, which means you subscribe to the encouragement, for the use of alternative therapies in the treatment of COVID-19?
Well, that one, I don't need to be railroaded to that one because up to date, because we registered practitioners in this country, you understand, and we have less than 40 registered up to date. There are some of these people who are parading themselves as alternative medicine practitioners. As far as cancer is concerned, they are quacks because they are not registered. Whatever drug you call it, be it alternative, herbal, or conventional something, there are protocols you need to follow.
Okay, so it's about them following the protocol and getting their products validated.
Yes, of course.
Okay, fine.
You see, one used to follow the protocols, are you getting me? And they go through normal tests, and they do the clinical trials, and it's proved to be efficacious and effective. Are you getting me? Yes. Of course, it has passed the test of the time.
Okay, so
but it's not for you to go and just mix something and say this is this. No.
Okay, so on a final note, there will definitely be a post-COVID-19. What's your take on that?
My fear about post-COVID-19 is Nigerians going back to the old system. You see, now let us try and institutionalize washing of hands, use of sanitizers, maintaining hygienic environment and what have you. Even after COVID-19, let it continue. But if that stops after this thing, is a big problem.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Tajuddin Sanusi, Registrar Medical and Dental Council, for coming on Health Options.
Thank you very much.
Time now to go over to our nature scanner for some enlightenment on the micronutrient called zinc.
Zinc is one of the micronutrients that is actually needed by the body. And I'm glad we have actually differed in our definition. You defined it as an element. That is very true. That is the knowledge that we used to be taught in those days. In secondary school, they say that zinc is an element. And by the time you say zinc is an element, you know that it's an element located on the periodic table. Your teacher will give you a pass mark. But zinc is a micronutrient, and it is one of the most important micronutrients that would come to know today. What is a micronutrient? A micronutrient, as in zinc, is a nutrient that is involved in several biochemical functions in the body. So let me land on the functions of zinc in the body. Zinc is really very important. Zinc is required for our immune system. And I'm sure these days we've been pounding on immune system, that immune system is what actually keeps us, going. So zinc is very important in its role in the immune system. I will come to the specific later. Another function of zinc is that zinc is involved in the structural components of, cells and tissues. What do I mean by this? You know that our tissue is actually supported by the material known as, collagen. Zinc is actually responsible for the laying down of proper collagen so that our bodies will work, properly. That is the function and then the structure. Zinc is also involved in the maturation or the right maturation of the ovum. That is the woman, aspect. So that if you see that with the right maturation of the ovum, then you can overcome fertility issues. Zinc is primarily found in the meat that we eat, be it red meat, be it beef, be it chicken, be it fish. It is especially, and of particular and highest concentration of zinc is found in, oysters. I don't think that is something we have here in very common, but oysters have the richest source of zinc. You can also recommend, crab. So people should go on opening crab farms so that we can have natural sources of zinc. So that is one. So that is the meat source. Then zinc is also available in plants. There are certain legumes like beans and then lentils. They also contain the right source of zinc. The caveat, however, in those they contain certain chemicals known as phytates. So beans, for example, is strongly recommended that you soak it very well so that you can get rid of those phytates because they have other inimical benefits. So zinc is also available in eggs that we eat, and then the plant sources, including our own okra. It is also available in carrots. All these are the different sources of zinc that we can take. And on top of that, the supplementation is also required. You take it at a dietary formula because the truth is that our agricultural practices and lifestyle has actually changed. So we cannot depend on these natural sources that I have mentioned to meet the optimal level that we require. That's why we also encourage uptake of supplemental doses of zinc. If you look at the combo or the protocol regimen for treatment of COVID-19 patients, it actually includes zinc. You're talking of the hydrochloroquine. You're talking of azithromycin. You see, you get the best result if you use zinc as a combination to azithromycin and hydrochloroquine. Another thing you must also put in mind, don't forget our own, vitamins. Vitamin C must go in that combination. Vitamin D must go in that combination because in that set of combination of hydrochloroquine, azithromycin, zinc, vitamin C and D, you get the best results. Also, zinc is really very, very important in children. Apart from the fact that zinc is involved in formation what we call neurotransmitters of the brain, malformation of zinc can lead to malnutrition or suboptimal doses of zinc can lead to poor development in children. In fact, there is actually a genetic condition that is actually associated with, zinc, deficiency. So the children will be born with low IQ. Low IQ if the mother is actually zinc, deficient. So it is strongly advocated that zinc should be supplemented in pregnant women as well as young children. Most of these nutrients that I'm talking about, because we are into integrative medicine, we have them in injectable forms. And this injectable form is enough to kickstart you. And once you get at that optimal level, then we will maintain you on the oral dosing. So this is very, very important. Make sure you see your doctor and make sure if the levels are, the doctor will make sure if the levels are terribly low, then they will give you intravenous, infusions to kickstart you, and then you can be maintained on the on the oral doses.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
Enlightenment on zinc, we conclude this episode of Health Options. A quick reminder that you can go to our YouTube channel to watch the upload of these and other episodes of the program. Email us for your comments and contributions at healthoptions@nta.gov.ng. Protect yourself and people around you from COVID-19. My name is Rabi Abdullah. Many thanks for watching. Bye for now.